Now, a hidden camera investigation that couldn't be closer to home. Your house is probably the biggest asset you have, but do you do your homework when it comes to home construction? Tonight, a look into the multi-billion-dollar business of home contracting, where a dream house can easily sink into a money pit. Victoria Corderi tells us what you should know before you sign that contract with your contractor.
Last fall, this woman hired a contractor to do work on her San Francisco home. But instead of a finished basement, she says she was left with a rotting frame and plenty of rage.
If I had a gun and I saw him, I'd probably blow his brains out.
After spending more than $100,000, the single mother of two is now broke and facing foreclosure.
You can't put a price on the loss that my family and I are incurring at this point.
This man says the same contractor walked off with $89,000 and left his house a disaster.
It's a nightmare. It's a worst nightmare that any homeowner can go through.
The contractor had no license, but he did have a record for grand theft and 57 complaints on file with the state's licensing board, something his client didn't know.
57 complaints. Yes, I'm very shocked. My mistake was not checking his complaints.
The home contracting industry nationally does $200 billion in business each year. There certainly are many honest contractors, but authorities estimate that millions of dollars are lost to unscrupulous ones. Investigator Rick Vellucci says in California, a big problem is contractors who operate without licenses.
They're ripping people off.
I would say a good majority of them know that they're ripping people off. If they finish the job, they finish it. If they don't, they don't. They get all the money they can and take off.
That's why investigators for the licensing board are going undercover, posing as homeowners in a sting operation, luring unlicensed contractors before they have a chance to lure consumers.
I'm just saying, to buy the house needs a lot of work done to it.
Okay.
I think you're between like 8 and 10,000.
8 and 10,000?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, partner, my name's Carl Vega. I'm an officer of the state of California. Do you have a contractor's license?
Nope.
Okay, you're under arrest. I need you to put that down. Analyze your fingers.
They target the worst offenders.
We're going to have the officers in this closet here, okay? You can go in there, leave the light out, shut the door.
We're not waiting for the complaints to come in anymore. We go out, we do stings like this, and we try to catch the unscrupulous, illegal operators.
The operation begins with calls to contractors who use phony license numbers in their ads in the Yellow Pages and on their trucks.
I saw your ad in Yellow Pages.
I'm calling about some concrete work.
Come hook me up.
Hey, would you have time to work me in to come and look at my house?
Then they set up shop in a house and wait to see who shows up. They've called this contractor Thomas Pickering of Sacramento, who installed a faulty heating system for this retiree.
My life and my husband's life was in danger. It was a fire hazard.
Despite having 32 other official complaints and a revoked license, Pickering just keeps on working. And he's among the first to show up at the Sting House.
Okay, who's coming?
He gives an undercover investigator his bid.
$48.95. $4,895.
That's for a 14 seer.
Meanwhile, police are waiting in a back room listening. They hear the undercover investigator ask about Pickering's license. Then they move in with the licensing board's cameras rolling.
Okay, what's your license number?
733-695.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah, no problem. I will, when I do, I'll
Okay, this is an undercover sting operation.
All right.
Back, please.
Okay.
I'm with the Contractor State Licensing Board. Is this really your contractor's license number?
Tim Kent, he's, can you loosen that one a little? Ow, loosen both of them, thank you.
The license number Pickering gives is not his, so he's arrested.
Okay.
Yet, he doesn't seem all that upset.
Trying to be nice and everything. You want to see chairs on that camera or what?
Does it pay to be an unlicensed contractor in the state of California? One would seem so by looking at this.
These two men who show up to do a job at the Sting House work for a tree removal business.
125, that's $575? So roughly $600.
Neither one has a license.
All right, come on in, guys.
Like 8 others that day, they walk straight into the arms of the law.
Please, interlace your fingers back your head.
What's going on?
It's an undercover sting operation.
Huh?
What becomes clear to investigators in a matter of seconds is the overpowering smell of marijuana. It's only 9 a.m. They find a pipe and a bag of pot in one of the men's pockets.
What's your first name? Did you smoke a bowl before you came here?
No.
You smoke every day?
No.
Whose stuff is that?
What stuff?
The weed.
His.
Who's for all the cameras?
American Idol.
Sweet. I should have, prepared for the audition.
You ever been arrested before?
Yeah. Drunk in public.
So what's the big deal about catching a pot-smoking tree climber? Investigators say in a worst-case scenario, if the unlicensed contractor doesn't have insurance, the homeowner is taking a huge risk.
No workers' comp on the guy that's going to be climbing your tree who's high on pot.
They can sue you. The guy who's high and falls out of the tree.
The guy who's high, who falls out of the tree and lives and knows anything about workers' comp laws, knows that he can hire an attorney and sue the property owner for everything they have.
Catching workers with drugs is not unusual. They say they've seen plenty over the years.
So you found Valium, you found pot.
Yeah, you'll find crank, cocaine. A lot of the unlicensed people are drug users. Again, repeat offenders. Some of them have warrants out for their arrest. Some of them have history of child molestation.
That's why they want contractors to have a license, which in California means they have to pass a competency test and be subjected to a criminal background check.
How much you had to drink today? A couple.
How you doing, man? Put your hands behind your back. This is an undercover sting operation.
Last year, investigators arrested 19,000 unlicensed contractors in California. Just a fraction, they say, of those who are out preying on homeowners. But there's a whole category of contractors that police may not be able to touch, because it turns out that even if your contractor does have a license, it may still not protect you from being ripped off.
Coming up, they wrote their contractor a check for a multi-million-dollar dream home. Then came the reality check.
I thought he was going to have a heart attack. The contractor had control of him, and it was killing him.
When our investigation continues. Contractors undercover arrests. How much do you really know about your contractor? A hidden camera investigation continues in a moment.
Must be about 2:30. Shell's using correct.
Turning to our investigation, we've just seen an undercover sting targeting unlicensed home contractors. 19,000 were arrested in the state of California alone last year. And though police can crack down on contractors who are unlicensed, what about contractors who some say are unscrupulous? Here again, Victoria Corderi.
Brian Scher thought he was doing everything right when he hired a contractor to build his new home. He made sure he had a license and even got references.
Everyone was very, very complimentary.
There were no complaints on his license?
No complaints whatsoever.
So then, why did things go so wrong?
I've been taken so badly, and there's nothing that I can do about it.
First, Scher says his contractor, Richard Martinez, fell way behind schedule. And worse, he botched the job.
This beam should be about over here. How a guy can put a beam there that should be here, and it says so simply on the plan, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, what's going on there?
This is all wrong. The whole thing is wrong.
Now the house has to be torn down. The contractor, he says, took the lumber and windows from the construction site and refused to give them back. He says he's been receiving bills the contractor never paid for things that have nothing to do with his project.
Personal tools, candy bars, stuff which are just for himself, cell phone holders. He charges to my job site. I have to pay, and I cannot do a thing about it.
Scher says in the end, he's out $200,000 and may even lose his property. We went to his contractor's house, and he wouldn't come out.
He's not going to come and talk to anybody right now.
Well,
but he did call us and leave this voicemail, on which he said he was the victim, not Brian Scher.
So if you would like to discuss this, please call me back, and I'll tell you about it.
We did call, and Martinez agreed to an interview, then didn't show up. If you think that's an ugly situation, talk to Ed Shimon and his wife. They did what most homeowners do, very little homework. They got a good recommendation and went with that.
I had the architect tell me he's a great guy, great builder. I'd be lucky to get him to build my house.
That great guy was contractor Covey Cowan. They hired him to build their multi-million-dollar Silicon Valley mansion.
He seemed very sincere. So it's still hard for us to believe what's happened.
What happened was a financial debacle. Shimon says he was paying Cowan hundreds of thousands of dollars, but that as weeks passed, Shimon says, the contractor told him he needed more.
He would tell you he's running out of cash?
Yes. He actually came to me and wanted to borrow $250,000.
Now that doesn't inspire confidence.
That didn't inspire confidence at all. I mean, I'm like, what? Here's a multi-million-dollar project, and I know you're signing up other multi-million-dollar projects, and now you want to borrow $250,000 from me?
Shimon's wife, Annalise, says the stress was unbearable. One particular phone call between contractor Cowan and her husband, she says, left her shaken.
They screamed at each other for about 45 minutes, I would say, to an hour. I thought he was going to have a heart attack. The contractor had control of him, and it was killing him.
Why didn't you fire him?
I was afraid. And I got to tell you, I felt I was like a hostage. If I didn't give him more money, then he was going to be angry with me and sabotage my project. Even be nice to this guy.
It's almost as if he's doing you a favor, as opposed to...
Exactly, that's the best way I can describe it. He's doing us a favor.
Which is crazy, but...
That's the way it is. As soon as that contractor starts your project and you give him money, you're invested with him for the next, till he's done.
It turns out contractor Covey Cowan had a history of financial problems. In 1994, his business went bankrupt, leaving a trail of angry creditors. That was something Shimon didn't know, and neither did this homeowner, until it was too late.
When you hear the name Covey Cowan, what pops into your mind?
Theft. Just, he's a thief, basically.
Mimi Chang hired the contractor to build her family's home in the Tony Hills of San Francisco.
It was a disaster.
6 months into Chang's project, Cowan delivered some very bad news.
He was very nervous. And he told me, that he was going out of business. Work had stopped on our job the day before, and that was it. He was walking away from the job.
Ed Shimon says he got a similar jolt from Cowan.
I was shocked. It was a 30-second phone call. I mean, it was like, I'm shutting my doors, I can't make payroll. And he hung up the phone. It wasn't no...
I'll try to help you, I'll take care of it, I'll finish the project, I'll find somebody else,
Zero.
What did you say, or were you just...
I was speechless.
Speechless until he began receiving bills for thousands of dollars from subcontractors. Money, he says, he'd already paid Cowan to cover the supplies.
I mean, how does that make any sense? That I paid the contractor a year ago, and a year goes by, and now the cabinet guy wants money from me.
Because it turns out, even though Shimon paid Cowan, Cowan never paid the cabinet maker or some of the other subcontractors. Mimi Chang also began receiving bills she thought she'd already paid. They learned a potentially costly little secret of the contracting business. In most states, when you hire a contractor, it's your responsibility to make sure all of the subcontractors get paid. If not, they can put a lien on your house, in effect force you to hand over money or risk losing your property. Now, Ed Shimon says he's facing lawsuits over unpaid bills.
What is this?
That's all our stone.
Oh, is this the stone that was left uncovered?
Yeah.
Yet he's still forging ahead with the construction. This time, he's the contractor, managing the project by himself.
And what is that?
That's going to be the guest house and my shop down there.
There's a bridge when you come in here. That's the kitchen.
Cowan's other former client, Mimi Chang, says she still can't believe the contractor's attitude toward her predicament.
I said, are you ever going to make this right for us? Are you ever going to try to pay this back? He looked at me and said no, basically.
After much searching, Mimi Chang found another contractor willing to finish her home. But thanks to Cowan, she says, her family has taken a devastating financial hit.
This was our money. This was our retirement. He didn't just take money. If it were just money, it'd be one thing. But he really, it's shaken us a lot. And it's been a tough road.
We wanted to find contractor Covey Cowan to ask why he abandoned the Chang and Shimon's projects. And you may be surprised to find out where we caught up with him.
When we return, a confrontation at the construction site.
There are families who are out hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're wondering where that money is.
And tips on how you can avoid a contractor catastrophe. Returning to our investigation, the home contracting industry is a giant business, some $200 billion a year. And we've seen some families spend huge sums of money on contractors who left them high and dry. So what will they do, and what can you do to avoid the same mistakes? Here again, Victoria Corderi.
We watched dozens of arrests and tagged along on 5 different sting operations set up by the California State Licensing Board. But what happens to those illegal contractors? Most of them simply get a citation, like a traffic ticket. It's a misdemeanor to work without a license.
You guys need to apply for your license, get your license, and do this the right way, okay?
Cool.
But often that's not enough to keep unlicensed contractors from working. Remember Thomas Pickering, the contractor with numerous complaints and a revoked license?
You want to see tears on that camera or what?
He was charged with a felony for using someone else's license. He never even bothered to show up for his court date. On that day, we found him loading up his truck with tools and heading off to work.
Mr. Pickering? I'm Victoria Corderi. I wonder why you're still working, even though you don't have a license.
And what about that contractor who did have a license and abandoned the projects of these homeowners? So you might be surprised to find out what the contractor is doing now. He's back on the job, working on another multi-million-dollar project just 20 minutes from those houses he abandoned. We watched Cowan for weeks managing the building of this $8 million, 6,000-square-foot home. As the first to arrive and the last to go home, he seemed to be in charge again.
My name is Victoria Corderi. I'm with Dateline NBC. And I had a couple of questions for you. I was wondering how you're working on this project if you had abandoned other projects. Because there are families who are out hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're wondering where that money is. Can you tell us?
I don't really think I need to have any conversation with you.
Can you give them an explanation? Do you think you deserve one?
I've given my explanation to all those people.
No, you haven't. The last thing you said to them is, I'm going bankrupt, and you walked away. Doesn't it behoove you to give them an explanation for that, since you're obviously working again?
Well, yeah, I still got to put bread on the table, don't I?
So did they.
Yeah. You know, I did the best I could, and I ran into some tough breaks, and I couldn't keep the business going.
The contractor disputes homeowner Ed Shimon's version of what happened, including that he asked for a loan. To hear Cowan tell it, he's a victim of circumstance. But his former clients allege they're the victims, that Cowan used their money to pay bills from other projects. That's illegal in California. Cowan didn't address that allegation, but he did admit he didn't run his business properly.
You know, in this business, every now and then, contractors are going to find themselves upside down.
By upside down, do you mean taking money from one job, putting it into another job?
I mean that we were on a negative cash flow basis.
And so that meant that you were asking for money and using it elsewhere?
I was, instead of paying the bills at 30 days, I was paying the bills maybe at 60 days.
But it was worse than that. What these people feel like is that they were defrauded. How do you see it? I'm just trying to understand here.
Cost overruns.
That you don't account for? That's so bad that you have to leave families in the hole? Cost overruns are a normal part of contracting, right? How did it become a runaway train? I mean, were you just
There was just a
incompetent?
lot of them all at the same time. A lot of things that were difficult to foresee.
And what does he say to the homeowners he abandoned?
So what? So it's over now for you? You've declared bankruptcy. These people are out hundreds of thousands of dollars and end of story?
If there was something I could do to make it right, I would do it. I'm not in a position to make it right.
I'm just going to guess they're paying more money, their project isn't running on time.
Cowan says he's no longer the contractor on this job, that the owners are paying him a salary just to manage the project.
Do these people know everything that's happened?
Oh, yeah.
And that hasn't affected your relationship, your business relationship with them?
We did the best we could with the situation. You know, by me staying on here, it helps to mitigate their loss.
We spoke to the owners of the house, and they say although Cowan cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars, they felt they had little choice but to pay him to finish. They agreed to sit down for an interview, but canceled when they say Cowan told them he would walk off the job if they cooperated with Dateline. As for Ed Shimon and his family, an 18-month project stretched into 3 years. And they say the contractor's mismanagement forced them to spend $1.5 million more than they'd planned. Their house still isn't finished, and neither is Mimi Chang's home. All of these people learned some tough and costly lessons about the contracting business. There are some measures you can take to avoid repeating their mistakes. Check the contractor's license and business history for red flags such as bankruptcy. Ed Shimon did almost no homework.
I didn't even check the guy had a business license or contractor's license. I mean, it's stupid. It's triple. Stupid.
Also, never give more than 10% as a down payment and only make payments in scheduled increments. Some experts even recommend paying subcontractors directly to make sure they get paid. Finally, consider requiring the contractor to furnish a bond, a kind of insurance policy. If the job isn't finished, you're covered. In the end, taking precautions may prevent a dream home from morphing into a money pit, or worse.
You know, everyone talks about the money. Not that the money is not important, but it's the time and the energy and the stress this has put on the family.
For more on what you can do to protect yourself from unscrupulous contractors, log on to our website. The address is dateline.msnbc.com. That's all for this edition of Dateline Sunday. We'll see you again for Dateline Friday at 8, 7 Central. I'm Ann Curry for Stone Phillips and for all of us here at NBC News. Good night.